Halim woke up to the faint hum of the city outside his apartment window. His bed was nothing more than a mattress on the floor, stained and worn from years of use. The room around him was a bleak reminder of his reality, a dimly lit space cluttered with remnants of a life once filled with joy. He sat up, rubbing his unkempt beard, and glanced at the faded photograph of his wife, Cassia, sitting on the windowsill. Her absence was a void that consumed him daily, yet he had learned to live with it. She had died of a mysterious illness, leaving him alone in a world that felt colder without her. With no job and no children, Halim had grown used to surviving on borrowed money from friends, or by stealing groceries when desperation struck. His landlord, a kind-hearted man, never pressured him for rent, but that kindness only deepened Halim's shame. He spent his days wandering the city, not buying anything, just existing like a ghost among the living. Once a charming and doting husband, he now drifted through life with little care for how others perceived him. That morning, as Halim stepped out, his worn sandals scuffed against the pavement. His path led him to a small tea stall where he often sat for hours, sipping the cheapest tea he could afford. Today he shared the bench with a man in his 50s. The stranger had an air of familiarity, though Halim couldn't place why. "You look familiar," the man said, stirring his tea. Halim raised an eyebrow, intrigued. It wasn't often someone struck up a conversation with him. They talked for a while, about nothing and everything. It felt good in a way Halim hadn't felt in a long time. The stranger's demeanor was warm, and Halim found himself easing into the companionship. As their conversation deepened, the man invited Halim to his apartment. "Come, let's eat something," he said with a casual wave of his hand. Halim hesitated, but eventually agreed. As their conversation deepened, the man invited Halim to his apartment, himself easing into the companionship. As their conversation deepened, the man invited Halim to his apartment. "Come, let's eat something," he said with a casual wave of his hand. Halim hesitated, but eventually agreed. The apartment was in a much better condition than his own, clean and well furnished. Yet something about it felt off, a subtle unease that Halim couldn't shake. They ate together, talking about their interests and lives. The food tasted better than anything Halim had eaten in weeks, but his unease lingered. At one point, Halim excused himself to use the restroom. The moment he entered, a foul stench hit him, a nauseating mix of decay, waste, and something indefinable. He glanced at the toilet and froze. A hand was floating in the bowl, pale and lifeless, the fingers just visible above the water. Halim's stomach churned as panic gripped him. Summoning every ounce of courage, he reached out and tried to pull it. The texture was cold, slimy. It was unmistakably human, a woman's hand. The gruesome scene painted a horrifying picture in his mind. Someone had been murdered, their body dismembered to fit into this vile hiding place. Halim retched violently, his whole body trembling. He splashed water on his face, trying to erase the memory of what he had just seen. Emerging from the bathroom, he found the stranger waiting, his expression unreadable. "Don't hurt the dogs around here," the man said with a sinister chuckle, as if the words held some hidden meaning. Halim left the apartment in a daze, the experience shaking him to his core. As he walked through the streets, every hand he saw seemed unnatural, grotesque. His breathing quickened, and he broke into a run, shoes half falling off his feet. Back in his apartment, he rummaged through his belongings until he found Cassia's old diary. His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages, stopping at an entry dated December the 17th, 2003. In the entry, Cassia had written about a school trip to the woods with her friends. They had come across a sick dog and, in their youthful cruelty, decided to scare it. One girl hit it with a stick. Another kicked it, laughing as they tormented the helpless animal. Finally, Cassia, then just a girl, had taken a knife from her bag and stabbed the dog. The diary described the dog's pitiful cries, its desperate struggle to escape. Cassia had justified her actions, recalling how a dog had once bitten her younger sister, leaving her paralyzed. But as they stood over the dying animal, a boy had come running towards them, crying and clutching a bag of medicine. He was too late. "You monsters," he had screamed, cradling the lifeless dog. The girls had fled, vowing never to speak of the incident again. Halim closed the diary, tears streaming down his face. A haunting realization took root in his mind. He might know the identity of the woman whose hand he had seen in that toilet. Overwhelmed, he climbed the stairs to the top floor of his building, stepping onto the ledge of the 7th floor. Wiping his tears, he prepared to end it all. The wind howled around him as he leaned forward, and then, darkness. When he woke, he was back in his apartment. Cassia lay beside him, alive, her soft breathing the most beautiful sound in the world. Halim reached out and touched her face, his heart swelling with disbelief and joy. He let out a deep sigh, kissed her forehead, and lit a cigarette. As he let out the smoke, he laughed hard and said to himself, "Oh, what a dream."